So printmaking to me, from one of the first times that I could try to wrap my head around what it was, is I like to think of it as a stamp, but a more advanced stamp. So you're always printing, with printmaking you're always using some kind of matrix or plate to print from. I like to think of it too as you're not just drawing directly on paper, you're not just painting directly on paper, you're working from a matrix that you're carving into, drawing into, painting onto, and then you're taking your paper and printing it through either a press or even, like I said, rubbing a spoon across the paper. My name is Casey Weibust, and I am a printmaking instructor at the Jamestown Arts Center. I've worked here for around 7 years and taught all varieties from children's classes to adults classes to teens, and also make some of my own prints here as well. This is my home away from home. So the types of printing processes that I'm going to demonstrate are monotype, dry point, and relief printing, and also a little bit of collagraph. So monotype, which is the first one that I will be demonstrating, is basically just painting on like I said, you always use a plate, so printing on a plate. I usually use plexiglass. I like plexiglass because it's see-through, so you can take an image that you did in the past and you can trace from it, or you can draw on it and flip the plate over and then paint on the back side. Monotypes are more one-offs, so they're not reproducible, which most printing methods are. So it's really more of just you print a one-off, and then a lot of times people will do a ghost print, so they'll print it again, and that will be the ghost of the original. So then you're going to come over to the press, and you hope that you tightened it enough.
I think that one's going to be really cool.
I think so too. The best you can. You don't want your image to print on the blankets and then print with somebody else's print. So there's always print etiquette. Like I said, it's a lot of rule breaking, but there's some rules that you just don't break. The other process that I'm going to demonstrate is relief printing, which is most like a stamp out of all the processes. So it's basically carving into either wood or linoleum, and then you carve wherever you don't want color to be, you'll carve those areas, and then you will, once you have the area that's risen where you didn't carve, you're going to roll ink over the surface just like a stamp. And then you put your thin paper on top and use either a spoon or any kind of burnishing tool to really push that paper into the plate, and then you're going to pull it off and it's going to print just like a stamp. And then the last process that I'm going to demonstrate is collagraph and dry point, which is when your plate is a soft material. It can either be plexiglass or it can be this material called Sintra, which is kind of like foam core a little bit, but a little more sturdy, and you would carve into that using an etching needle or a ballpoint pen, and you would carve, if you wanted your lines to be light, you would carve light, and if you wanted your lines to be dark, you would carve really hard. So it's a lot like drawing into a plate, and then the collagraph part is collaging different textures like fabrics or vinyl onto the plate for your lights and darks. So with collagraph and dry point, whatever you carve or wherever there's texture, the ink's gonna hold in those areas. So when you ink the plate up, the ink's gonna really hold wherever there's an immense amount of pressure or texture, or there's no texture. So like the vinyl, for instance, is more like a sticker. The ink's not gonna wanna hold on to that. It's gonna be wanting to reject that ink. So that's how you get your lights and darks. So that's a little bit more advanced, and with monotype and with relief printing, you don't always necessarily need a etching press, but with collagraph and dry point, you will need an etching press. So each time I print a plate, it never comes out quite the same. So I like to think of it as like the magic of printmaking. Every time I print it, I'm not exactly sure what it's gonna look like, but I know that it's going to be some type of representation of the image that I carved. So for me, I love the freedom of that you can, it really allows you to be able to play, because once you carve your image, again, you can print it multiple ways and multiple times. So you don't have to really worry about getting it perfect the first time or even ever getting it perfect. It's more about the experimentation of the process. You can use plants to print from. You can make stencils. You can just literally scribble across a plate with paint and just, you know, scratch it with the etching needle and then pull it through and just see what it comes out like. You might love it, you might hate it. If you love it, you can hang it on your wall and frame it. If you hate it, you could print a different image on top of it so that you did like it. So my favorite part about it is just the experimentation and process